What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wildcat Dash here on Dash Sports TV. My name is Jacob Mennuti. I'm joined once again with my co-host Ryan Wohl. How are we doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing great. Can't wait to get into some football.
Yeah, well, the countdown continues as we are another week closer to the Pac-12 football season. We continue to have press conferences pretty much every day, which has given us a ton of news surrounding the team. We were fortunate enough to listen to Jamari Joyner speak to the media earlier this week, and where he revealed to us that he was playing most of the season injured. We know, of course, that he had that surgery on his foot in the offseason, but we had no idea that this injury was something that was bothering him during the season. So, I mean, just how impressive is that Joyner led the team in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns, and he was doing all of that with a bad foot. So, I mean, what can you say about this, Ryan? I mean, pretty incredible stuff here from Joyner, right?
Yeah, I think it shocked everybody when he said that last week. He's an incredible talent at the wide receiver position, and it just shows that this coming season how much of an impact that he can make because he led the team, as he said, with over 500 receiving yards, and now he's going to have Grant Gunnell full time as the starter. So I think the sky's the limit for Jamari Joyner.
And he was doing all of that in his first season as a wide receiver. Like, it's just so crazy to think that Joyner was recruited to Arizona to play quarterback. And he played his first season as a quarterback his freshman year, and then made that transition to wide receiver last season, and just put up those numbers. Just not only while being injured, but to do that in your first season as a collegiate wide receiver, it's just so impressive. Like, he's 100% now, so I fully expect him to have another good year, like you were just saying. I mean, it's just what's really interesting about that is that Jamari Joyner is just a small piece to this offense, and what could be an above average offense this season. So we'll get into it now. I mean, how good can this offense really be, Ryan? I mean, is it time to start giving this team credit where credit is due?
Yeah, I think this offense could finish top 5 in yards, points per game in the Pac-12 this season. And to get back to what you were saying about Jamari Joyner playing quarterback a few years ago, he did hint in his press conference a few days ago that they may throw in some gadget plays for him to maybe get snaps at the quarterback position this season.
I love the sound of that. That sounds great. I think it's time. I definitely think it's time to stop writing this team off, just simply because of the potential that this offense has. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say that this team is gonna go crazy and compete for the Pac-12 South, but I do think this team can be decent. Like we've seen the preseason polls, and I think Arizona's over under for this season was set at 1 win. Like it was a single win, which in itself is just so weird. Like, you don't really set a line at a whole win. Like 1.5 games would have been like more understandable. But anyways, I definitely think that to say that this team has a chance to win 0 games this year and finish dead last in the Pac-12 is just crazy. Like, do we really think that this team is worse than Colorado? Like, do we really think that this team is potentially worse than UCLA? Like I don't see it. Like, Colorado has lost a ton of their other pieces on offense, and they've got a completely new head coach coming into this season, and UCLA has a ton of holes to fill on their team as well. Like, Arizona beat UCLA and Colorado last year, and has had a history of beating Colorado in the past. Like, that's probably the only thing that you can probably give Kevin Sumlin credit for, is that he's been consistently he's been able to consistently beat Colorado every single year. Like I just don't see this team being that terrible with the potential on this offense, like on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and also there's the future just looks very bright because as you mentioned, like all these players are very young. Booby Curry missed last year. He's only in his second year. You got Grant Gunnell maybe for after this year for maybe one more year to two, depending on how he plays. And then the running back group with Nate Tilford and Michael Wiley, like the future is very bright for this offense. It's just going to be if the defense can chip in and pick them up this year.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of pieces on this offensive side. Really the only way that I see this offense just completely flop on its face this year is if Grant Gunnell has a bad year. Like if he just for whatever what reason just doesn't have it, which I think is very unlikely. That's the only scenario where I see Arizona not being a top five offense in this conference. Like there's just too much talent on that side of the ball to have a bad year. Like people forget, but we have to remember how good Grant Gunnell really is. Like he proved to us in his freshman year that he can lead this offense and put this team in a position to succeed. And he was a 4-star quarterback coming out of high school. Like he was a part of that Elite 11 camp. The one that they do every summer where they invite all the best quarterbacks from high school and they do a little competition thing. Like he was part of that camp. Like he was there with Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix, Sam Howell, Ryan Helinski. Talia Tagovailoa was there. I think Jaden Daniels was there as well. Like the point I'm making is that like to say that this team is projected to finish last in their conference, it's just ridiculous. Like, and to win 0 games and not even 1 game, like those teams that are projected to do that never have an elite quarterback, like a legit 4-star quarterback under center for them. Like the teams that finish last in the conference don't have a Grant Gunnell. You know what I mean? Like there's just too many pieces on this offense. I really just can't see it being realistic to peg this team as a 1-win team and just move on. Like there's just too much productive talent here for that to happen.
Yeah, and just hearing a lot of the players on offense talk, they just have so much heart to only win, as you said, 1 game. That's just not likely to me when looking at all these guys. Like Jamari Joyner he's setting himself up as a leader within that receiving group, and these guys want to win. Grant Gunnell, when he's being asked about winning 1 game, no games, like he's like laughing at that, and he takes that as motivation. And they're going in the season as underdogs, and it seems like they that's the spot they want to be in. They're happy with that.
Yeah, the Wildcats are fed up with that. Like we were talking with Bryce Wilma earlier in the week at his press conference, and he was saying that the talk in the locker room was that people are pissed off about these projections. They got something to prove. You know what I mean? Like so, there's just too much heart going on for this team. I think there's too much talent. I believe in this offense, and I do think that 1 win is just ridiculous. Like this offense just is way too good, and we've talked about it in the past before that we think everyone's going to be rusty on the defensive side, and so I think Arizona has a real chance to capitalize with its productive offense and win a couple games. So I do think it's time to stop sleeping on this offense. I think there's a lot of pieces here that you can really make the argument that this team has the potential to not necessarily compete for the Pac-12 South, right? Like I'll relax with that, but to peg them as a 1-win team, it's ridiculous. Like they're going to win a couple games this season for sure.
Yeah, and I think his team has a chance to be competitive in most of the games they play outside of maybe like USC. But this team, I think the offense is going to keep them in most games, and I don't think they're going to get blown out many times this season.
Yeah, I don't think there's any game on the schedule that I'm extremely worried about. I think that USC game might be a massacre, but we've talked about that Utah game. I see that as being a very winnable game. I know we talked last week and I said that the spread was a little off there, but if you want to look at it one way, that game is really winnable. I think Arizona's offense could really take advantage of this Utah team and catch them at the right time. Like we've talked about it and we've said that Utah is transitioning with their quarterbacks right now, and they've lost guys on the defensive side of the ball. Like in week 1 of the season, like they might still be trying to figure it all out. Like they don't know who their quarterback is going to be in 2 weeks. So like they're going to catch this team at a good time. Like if they were playing Utah, later on in the season, maybe I would be a little more worried, but I think week 1 against Utah is a pretty winnable game just because of the timing of this game. So I do like Arizona's chances in pretty much every game that they play just because of their offense. Like their offense is going to put up a lot of points and keep this team in ball games.
Yeah, and I think especially, as you said, in week 1, I think there's not going to be a lot of defense played as they're still getting set. So I think it's going to be what offense outperforms the other. And, yeah, I think our offense could be better than theirs. So Yeah, I think it's a very winnable game in a little over 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, if this offense figures to be a good one, we should expect to see some production out of the tight end position this year. We've officially reached that point of the offseason in Arizona football where we are asking all the same questions about whether or not we think that the tight end position is going to be used and featured in the offseason every season. Like seriously, every year we ask this question, and every year we are let down by the results. But this year, however, might be a little different. At least we hope so. We had a chance to talk with Bryce Wolma earlier this week, who was asked about what he feels like for he's probably asked for the 100th time in his career about whether or not the tight end is going to be used more in the offense. And honestly, his answer was pretty convincing. He said that he was being used a lot more in the passing game. Grant Gunnell just jokingly said that the tight end position is always open, and that him and Wolma, joke around with each other that they're going to throw the ball to each other more and throw the ball to the tight end more. So I don't know. What do you think, Ryan? Is this finally the year where we see the tight end be a part of this offense, or are we being tricked again into getting our hopes up?
I mean, there is room to look to see that they could. I mean, Arizona has two talented tight ends that are over 6 feet 4 inches tall, and they can make a difference in the offense. But as you know, if you look at through the past, that's not very likely. I mean, last season, like how does a tight end only catch 5 passes? Five. Like that doesn't even make sense. But like a tight end should be used like a lot during an offense if they want to be successful. And the guy that I'm want to look out for this year is Stacy Marshall. I saw him a few weeks back working with Grant Cannell, and he bulked up and he looks like a monster. And I think he could catch a few touchdowns this year in the end zone.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'll believe it when I see it. I know we've really been saying this every single year that this is going to be the year of the tight ends, but it really is just so wild how much the tight end has just strayed away from this program over the last few years. Like, it's hard to believe, but Bryce Wolmo is actually third on the team in total receptions in 2017, which was his freshman season, and that of course was under head coach Rich Rodriguez. So that 2017 season was the final year of the Rich Rod era. So, Kevin Sumlin and Mazzoni came in, and the tight end just completely disappeared from the offense. Like, I don't know what happened with that. Like, only 10 catches were made by a tight end in the last 2 years, like 5 last year and then 5 the year before. Like, that is unacceptable. Like, like, granted, I don't think Arizona has ever had the depth at tight end like they do this year to really make it part of their offense. But I think the Wildcats have the most options at tight end that they've had for a while. Like, we talked about Bryce Wolma. He's obviously going to be the tight end one for this team. We've also heard that Stacy Marshall, his name keeps coming up as someone who's going to be worked into the offense more, which I mean is just music to my ears because we love Stacy Marshall. So to hear that he's being worked into the offense, that is just great. I think he's going to be a really good weapon for Arizona with his 6'5" frame. There's also Zach Williams who can play a little bit of tight end. He's also can play wide receiver too. Roberto Miranda is another really interesting guy. He's listed as a wide receiver, but the majority of his tape before Arizona was him playing at tight end. So there's another pass catching option that Arizona has to choose from. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'll believe it when I see it, but I just see it. We've seen crazier things happen in 2020. So, who knows? This could be a crazy year. Maybe this is really the year of the tight ends. Who knows?
Yeah, and those two players that we've mentioned, Walma and Stacy Marshall, like they're not getting any younger. They're Walma's a senior, I believe, and Marshall's a junior, and it's just you need to give the guys a shot at some point. Like they're veteran players, and just give the guys a chance. It's not going to hurt the offense if you throw 5 balls a game up the middle and try to break the defense open. Like that's how teams win football games at a high level now.
Yeah, the tight end position just opens up so many opportunities for the passing game, like especially for Arizona. Like Arizona doesn't really have that gigantic receiver that they can rely on to catch a ball over another defender. Like all of those big body offensive weapons that that they have is in their tight end depth chart. So like by getting them more involved in not only using them, using them more than just as an extra blocker, it just makes your offense just so much more effective. Like, most of the best offenses in the league have a good tight end that they use in their scheme. Like, I know this is the NFL here, but look at the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, offense is so good because of how they use Travis Kelce. Like, obviously the Chiefs have a bunch of other studs on their team, so Kelce may not be the main reason why they're so good, but you get my point, right? Like look at the Ravens. Their offense is so good, because they have Mark Andrews, George Kittle with the 49ers, the Brady era when, our boy Gronk was at his peak. Like what I'm trying to say is that like all of great offenses have a good tight end that they can lean on and rely on. And it just opens up the offense so much. So like I think a tight end should be a staple in any offense when you're making your scheme. Like to just completely neglect it and only view that position as an extra blocker, you're just selling yourself short. Like the tight end needs to be used more. And I really, really hope this is the year of the tight ends for Arizona.
Yeah, and as Grant Cannell was saying, talking a few days ago about the tight end position, I hope he's more vocal within the coaching group with Sumlin and others, because he needs to make a statement that that's how he wants to run the offense. He wants plays to be called for the tight end position, because establishing a tight end in the offense just makes everyone better. It'll make Booby Curry better, Jamari Joyner. It'll open the field up for everybody, because if they know you're not using the tight end, they're not going to guard it as heavy when they run routes.
Yeah, I think I'm also really optimistic just because, they've talked about it in camp that, the tight end is always open, right? Like I actually think it really is. Like I think the problem with it last year and the year before that is that Khalil Tate isn't really one of those guys that is going to take his 4 yards and, like on 1st and 10, he's going to want to bomb it deep. Like we've seen him do that a million times. Like Khalil Tate was just never that guy to really take the yardage and move the sticks the way that Grant Gunnell does. Like I think Grant Gunnell really fits that Noel Mazzoni scheme, but he really does. Like he fits that scheme of taking the yards, and instead of, if nobody's open 15 yards down the field, we've got our tight end in the flat, we'll take our 4-yard gain. Like I'm a lot more optimistic this year just because Grant Gunnell is the number one quarterback. He's got no one else to share snaps with. Like I think this offense is going to be very productive, and I do expect the tight end to be more a part of this offense just because they've joked about it before and how he's always open, and they have that that joking chemistry of, hey, throw it to me, bro. So I know it's in his mind to hit the tight end on some plays. So I don't think it was ever in and this is not a knock on Khalil Tate, but I don't think it was ever in his mind to take his check down when, there was an opportunity to bomb it deep. So I think just the scheme with Grant Gunnell just fits this team a little bit better. And I am optimistic about seeing the tight end more this season.
Yeah, and early on in this season, it'll surprise a ton of teams if they start using the tight end, because teams won't be game planning for that, because over the past few years, Sumlin hasn't liked to use it, and it's in Arizona's history, they're not big on tight ends. So if they do that, it could really, really take this offense to the next level.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think teams are expecting Arizona to use the tight end at all. So, if you throw a couple balls to Bryce Wilma in the first quarter, that's going to scare the other team a little bit. They're like, oh, what the heck are they doing? They're not following their game plan. Like there is a chance here to catch some teams off guard by just suddenly using the tight end. So like I really want to see it, and I think we actually will see it this season.
Yeah, I agree. I hope throughout the past in the future that they can recruit some higher level tight ends, because as I said, these tight ends are going to be gone in the next year or two. So they need to put more focus on recruiting at that position.
Well, they've tried. I remember they had that 4-star tight end that committed to them. When I first saw that, I was like, "What in the world? Why you're a good tight end? You want to come to Arizona? Like, what did we say to you that made you want to come here?" Like he later decommitted, so he then learned his lesson. But it starts right now. Like this is a proving season for Arizona, because when you start talking to these other tight ends and these recruits, they're gonna see that there's only been 10 balls caught by a tight end in the last 2 years. Like that needs to change this season. You need to show that the tight end is the future for this offense, and we need you to come here to play tight end for us and be a part of this prolific offense. Like because the stats, just looking at it right now, like if I'm a good tight end, I'm going nowhere near Arizona. I'm going nowhere near Tucson because I'm seeing the production that the tight ends is being used in the offense, and I'm like, well, why would I want to come here if I'm not being used? So like this is a real proving season for Arizona. So it's going to be an important year on the recruiting trail, no doubt.
Yeah, I agree with that. I hope they look to insert that into the offense in the coming years.
Yeah, so for our final topic of the day, we're going to play a little game of higher or lower. It's pretty straightforward. We're going to give each other a stat for Arizona football this season, and we'll give our takes on if we think the Wildcats will exceed that stat or put up less than that stat. So we'll stay on the topic of tight ends for our first one here. Ryan, higher or lower 14 catches for Arizona tight ends this season? So that's 2 catches a game. Is that doable?
Yeah, I indeed think it is. I believe that tight ends are going to total around 20 catches, maybe a little even more this season.
Yeah, I think 2 catches is pretty doable. It's so funny because 14 catches is not a whole lot for Arizona, or it's not a whole lot, but for Arizona and its history at tight ends, it certainly is. Like like I said, that's 2 catches a game. I'm going to take the over here as well. I think I'm going to say that this team will hit the 14 catch threshold just because, I honestly, again, I'll believe it when I see it, but I do believe in the Grant Gunnell effect. I think he'll make that offense a whole lot better. I think he's going to spread the ball around and, hold to his partnership of giving the ball to Bryce Wilmot, and he's going to feed him. I also really like Stacey Marshall, as we've already mentioned on this show like 5 times. But I like the guys. I like Stacey Marshall. I like the guys behind him that the Wildcats have at their disposal. So I'm optimistic, but I think 14 catches is pretty doable.
Yeah, I got one for you now. Booby Curry, higher or lower, 5 touchdowns.
I'm gonna say under. I think it's tough because to actually predict what kind of role Booby Curry is actually going to have. Like we can predict that he's gonna have a breakout season, and I think he will. But realistically, I still think Jamari Joyner is going to be the wide receiver 1 for this team. He's going to be running all the routes. I also really like Brian Castile as some of the other as some of the other wide receivers that Arizona has. So it's just so tough because 5 touchdowns in a 7-game span is a lot. Like there's not a whole lot of room to have a bad game to hit that 5-game threshold. So it's tough to put up those numbers. Like I think if this was a situation where Booby Curry was the clear-cut number 1 wide receiver and there was nobody else that Gunnell can throw to, then yeah, I think 5 touchdowns is doable. But I think there's just too many options for Arizona. So I think Booby Curry's going to have a breakout year, but 5 touchdowns, I'm going to take the under on that one.
I'm going to take the over just simply because of the connection that they have. And I know it's a short season, but if Arizona is going to score a ton of points this year, they're going to rush the ball a lot. Don't get me wrong, but they're going to need a guy like Booby Curry to really step up, and especially in the red zone, score the football, because Jamari Joyner, he's going to score too, but I just feel like the gap between his level of talent to the guys below him is just the drop offs. So I think he's going to be that guy this year.
I actually never really thought about that, but I think Booby Curry could be like an interesting little piece to use in the red zone, right? Like I see Jamari Joyner being the number 1 guy, and he's going to be running all the main routes. But you start getting to the red zone, you got to be a little creative, right? Like we can see some jet sweeps with Booby Curry. He likes to think of himself as a big body receiver, so maybe we'll see some fades in the end zone. So who knows? Maybe they will feed Booby Curry. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's great for that in the red zone. You see, every offense needs a guy that can just jump up and catch that ball for you, and I think that's him.
All right, here's the next one. Higher or lower 30 points per game for Arizona's offense this season? We just finished hyping that unit up. Is 30 points achievable for this team?
I think I'm going to go under just because I think they're going to score 30 points some games, but I think they're going to have some games where they're going to score about 25 maybe in the 20s. But I think it's very close. But I just don't know if I can say they're every game they're just going to be putting up 35, close to 40 every week.
Honestly, I'm gonna go higher on this one. Arizona averaged 27 points per game last season, and that was with a somewhat dysfunctional offense last season, right? Like, all those wild and inconsistent, changes of rotating through Khalil Tate and Grant Cannell. Like, despite all of that, they still scored an okay amount of points. Like 27, I think middle of the pack in terms of the Pac-12. I think that was right around like 6th or 7th. I don't exactly remember. But, I expect this team to be a lot better this season with Cannell under center. I'll say it one more time. He fits that Noel Mazzoni scheme very well. I should get a T-shirt that says "fits the Noel Mazzoni scheme very well." That's how many times I've said that. But honestly, he's just very good at hitting his checkdowns and taking his yards that are given to him. I think he'll move the ball really well this season, and I'm all in on this offense this year. I think they'll score a ton of points this season. So give me the over on this one. I think they'll score more than 30.
Gotcha. My next one is running back Gary Brightwell, higher or lower, 650 rushing yards.
I'm gonna also take the under on this one as well. I think in a normal 12-game season, I think 650 yards is super doable. But with the season being only 7 games, I think that number is a little too high for me. Honestly, I think Gary Brightwell and the entire group of running backs is in the same position as the wide receivers. Where there's just too many mouths to feed. Like, I think Arizona has a ton of running backs that are going to be used this season, and they're going to be used in the run game and the pass game. So, just that situation is just, there's just too many mouths to feed. Like Gary Brightwell is the clear-cut horse, right? Like, I think he is, the workhorse for this team to an extent. Like, he's going to be the number 1 running back on the depth chart, no questions asked, right? But I think, he's earned that number 1 spot, but I just think there's just too many guys behind him that are going to be taking snaps. So I think that workload for Brightwell is to just put up that many yards is just not quite there. Like, he's certainly talented enough to put up those numbers if you give him that opportunity, but I don't think he's going to get enough snaps to do it. So I'm going to take the under at 650 just because there's so many other good running backs behind him.
Yeah, I'm going to go lower on that one too, just because the uncertainty so far when talking about the running backs, it doesn't seem like they're established yet, or they will in the near future of a clear cut like guy who gets a bulk of the carries every game. So I do think he's gonna I think he's gonna be the best running back in this group, but I say slightly under on that one.
Yeah, well, that is where we are going to end things. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in and watching, as always. Reminder that we are here live every Friday at 4 p.m. So make sure you tune in every single week for that. We also have columns now as part of our collaboration with Sports Pac-12. You can go check them out on their website, sportspac12.com, where our man Ryan Wohl will be writing weekly columns for them. So go ahead and check them out, and make sure you give us a check on our website as well over at www.dashsports.tv, where we post all of our full shows and our full clips. So if you missed out on the live shows, you can go ahead and watch them back on our website. You can also follow us on YouTube, as well as all of our social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. We have it all. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
See you guys.